Welcome into Philthy, a Philadelphia Eagles podcast. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. Tyson, we got a lot to talk about today. We wanted to get this done a little bit earlier in the week. I had some manners I had to attend to on the baseball side of things. So unfortunately, this has come a little bit late. But the Eagles dominated the Miami Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. This was a game that everybody was anticipating, a game that was supposed to be, hey, the Eagles are going to get exposed. Look at the secondary. They're going to get shredded up. Oh, this offense stinks. Let's see what happens when they play a real team. And it was the complete opposite. So we're going to go through that. Tyson, we're going to go through the Kevin Byard trade because I think you manifested this thing. So we'll talk about that, and then we're going to move into the potential trade deadline moves that the Eagles could make before the deadline is upcoming here soon. So, Tyson, let's jump right into it. I teed off a little bit on it and teed it up, but I mean, the Eagles just kicked the Dolphins' ass.
Yeah, and if you don't know by now, we'll do our best to fill you in. People have talked about this quite a bit, but what I saw is a defensive line that didn't lose a rep until the third quarter, and then at that they lost maybe three, four reps like the entire game. And I know, first of all, Eichenberg is one of the worst centers in the NFL. Like when he has to play, remember my Storm Norton hate? It has made its way over there to Miami. But all those things aside, like Isaiah Wynn's a good player. Isaiah Wynn gets chucked out the stadium on the fourth play of the game. Like those are not, you can point to that as a Dolphins fan and maybe take some solace because I'm hearing a lot of people upset with the 10-0 penalty disparity, which there were times in the game where it was like, okay, like we got away with one there, like that Jalen roughing the passer and those are calls that he probably should get because that Jalen Hurts, dude. And so maybe we benefited from some of those, but 6 of those were pre-snap. The Eagles were flagged. It was just offsetting. But what I saw, dude, was a physical football team that is so much better than people are giving them any sort of credit for. This Eagles offense is on pace to punt the ball 37 times this year. The Bills led the league last year with 45 punts. This Eagles offense is lapping that due to, it doesn't feel like last year because the drives are 15 plays long. Like it's mind-blowing right now, the mental gymnastics that you have to listen to because the 49ers get dogged. They got thrown out the club by the Minnesota Vikings at the line of scrimmage. The Lions get crushed. And then it's still like, we don't really believe in Philly because Miami hasn't played anybody either and blah, blah, blah. What I saw was the most physical team in football doing what they do. And that was bullying you. And final score could have been 10-7. There was no shot the Eagles were going to lose this football game. And that became pretty clear pretty quick.
Yeah, I think it got a little dicey in the second half when Darius Slay made the big play. That's why his nickname's Big Play Slay when he intercepted that ball. Because I think at that point, I don't necessarily know that I was sweating just because how dominant the Eagles looked when they had the football, except for the 2 Jalen Hurts mistakes, which were ultimately costly. Because without those, the Eagles, they were not going to lose that football game. And it turned out they weren't going to lose it anyway. But with the fumble early in the half, that put them in a plus field position opportunity. They go and kick a field goal, actually, instead of scoring a touchdown. The interception that turned into a pick six, that was honestly a big play in the game that ultimately
crazy.
We'll look back on and say, well, we kind of forget about it, when in reality it was really what kept the Dolphins in the game. The interception by Darius Slay was a huge moment. I think if we look back on this game.
How many times out of 10 is that pass interference on Zach Cunningham?
I think if Slade didn't intercept the ball, I think it would have been pass interference.
Right. That's the only other one I can really think of. I think that's like a 40% of the time refs probably chuck that thing.
And I think, was the pass interference by Cunningham? Like, probably, to be honest. But at the same time, the guy's already falling. The guy's turned away. He's already falling back. Cunningham just kind of like turns late. And then Slade jumped it. And, if you look at it from a side angle, I really think it was 3 yards off. And I know the NFL doesn't do the uncatchable thing anymore, but that's about the definition of when you're falling away and the ball's going to hit in front of your toes. So I think, if you could be frustrated with that from the Dolphins, I think it was reversed. And if that's the Eagles, I think we'd be frustrated as well. But that's the NFL, right? Like, the Eagles have been hosed on calls, and this was just a time when we got the variance that went our way. As far as the game itself and how the Eagles looked, which I think we want to project forward, I completely agree with you, Tyson. This was a physical football team who dominated the trenches on both sides. There were some times, having Lane Johnson back certainly helped mitigate the pass rush. And there were some times when Hurts had to escape out of the pocket and he got a little sped up. But overall, I thought this unit did a really good job. And then what about the defensive line? I mean, because all we've heard, Cowboys, the Niners, those are the dominant units. And in reality, every time I turn on the TV, it's the Philadelphia Eagles who are getting after the passer, causing pressure rates, things like that. Now, they don't necessarily have the sack numbers, but Tyson, I think we all know, as we have evolved into advanced analytics, what we're looking for if you don't get the sack is a pressure rate, snap win rate. And that's what the Eagles constantly do. And I think that ultimately is going to carry them over. Then when you go, well, this team had the most sacks and they played the Arizona Cardinals twice, and then they played, which the Eagles will do as well, but they played the Giants and the Commanders twice. So I just think, like you said, it's a discrediting statement about the Eagles that people continue to try to make, and it is becoming mental gymnastics at this point when they won't give this team the benefit of anything. And it's not even the doubt anymore, just anything.
You know who else looks different than last year is the Kansas City Chiefs. Nobody cares. They're 6-1. Then they're like, the old no one likes us, we don't care. That's the Philly mantra. It's no one likes us, we care a bunch. That's really what's going on, and I'm guilty of that as well. I just am a little bit confused, Brad, because this is like to be able to have a defense empty their playbook essentially against you every week on offense because you're on the field for 40 minutes because you're running 30 more plays than they saw the week before. That's like a real benefit on top of the fact that you're obviously tiring them out and leaving the defense on your side able to rest and things like that while you're on the field. But that's something that I'm wrapping my mind around with this Brian Johnson thing, because that first red zone trip, I was like, this is going to be a long night. If this is what we have, it's Sunday night. This is the first time we're in the red zone, and then it's draw QB sneak or QB draw basically. Like it was a bad sequence of plays there, and then they figured it out, dude. And that red zone offense is coming back to the norm. And also, I think it was 19 teams are struggling more in the red zone this year than they were last season. So it's a league-wide issue. It's just when we're watching Eagles games, we kind of have the blinders on and you forget about everything else that's happened. And the other part, if you're consuming your Eagles game solo the way I do, where that's just the only thing on the screen, but then you're watching red zone all morning, we're not seeing the second and third down decisions. We're seeing the touchdowns. Dude, this team is elite. Like AJ Brown he's going to wear a gold jacket one day. Like this dude is going to Canton, Ohio. He's the best football player, best offensive skill position player this team's had since T.O. probably. And I don't really think that's hyperbole at all. And he's putting up a case right now. Like when you talk about young receivers in the NFL, you talk about Justin Jefferson, you talk about Jamar Chase. You can sneak whoever else you want in there, and that's rightfully so. They're really good players. AJ Brown is in this weird he's not quite as young as those guys, and his numbers weren't as good in Tennessee because he was averaging 70 yards a game. They don't really throw the ball, blah, blah, blah. Then you kind of just start going like bar for bar with these guys, and it's like, oh, AJ's better here, AJ's better there. Like this is in the night when the two best receivers in the NFL were on the field, the Eagles had the better one.
And that, which is pretty shocking to say, because it's not like Tyreek Hill, was a bum.
He's awesome.
I mean, 11 for 88. You got to credit Sean Desai, I think, is the other thing as well. And we've been talking about this. This is the defensive coordinator that Eagles fans have been clamoring for. Like we've been clamoring for
a long time.
You blitz when you're supposed to blitz, and you drop back when you're supposed to drop back. You're aggressive when you're supposed to be aggressive, and you're smart when you're supposed to be smart. And that's what Sean Desai has been doing since he's taken over the Eagles. We all know the secondary is the weak spot of the Philadelphia Eagles. It was supposed to be exposed against the Dolphins. Well, yeah, they have a great defensive line, but when Tua's getting the ball out and you have all this speed, how are the Eagles going to keep up? Well, you design a really good defense. And Sidney Brown, the safety, said, this is what we did. We knew they were going to try to hit zones because Tua's a rhythm passer. We're going to take away that first option and that zone that he wants to throw, that window. And then our defensive line is going to win against the offensive line. And that's what happened. And that's what happens when you have a really good coordinator. And I don't think if Jonathan Gannon is still on this team, Tyson, I don't think that would have been the game plan. It would have been, we'll just do what we do, and then they're going to get shredded.
Well, that was the kind of most eye-opening part of the game to me, as I was sitting there with my PTSD from the Johnny Gans days, and a little bit, honestly, of the Jim Schwartz days when he was with Doug Peterson as well, because Jim, let's play sticks. Like, I'm going to drop the corners to here, and if you want 7, you can get 7. You're not running on us. And this Eagles team, Sean Desai is like, yeah, I mean, we can do that, but my preferred preference is to take away what you're best at, and then I'm going to counter off that, right? So there's in-game adjustments happening, which is something that we're not used to as Eagles fans over the last couple of years, because to be perfectly honest, Tua is the exact kind of quarterback that would rip up a Jonathan Gannon-led defense. And so that was interesting to see. And I honestly thought Tua had a good game. I know there's some people kind of crapping on him. I don't know what else you really expected him to be able to do in that game. And I know, we're sitting here and we picked the Eagles. I didn't think it was going to be really all that close of a football game. So we're victory lapping a little bit here, but the national consensus was kind of like, man, I don't know. Like, this Dolphins team is super good. And Philly was just like, if you want to come to our house when we're wearing the Kelly greens, which we got to get into, by the way, but like, you got to come way more physical than that. And that team that played on Sunday night can beat anybody in the league. The team that played the Jets can lose to anybody in the league, and that's the duality of the NFL. And so maybe next time some of you guys are on the ledge after an Eagles loss, just remember that this team is going to go much farther than you thought a week ago.
And I'll put a bow on this, and we'll get into the Kelly Greens before moving into the rest of our stuff. Tyson, and if you haven't listened to us go on this before, I don't think we necessarily have dove too deep into this on the Eagles podcast. So we talk about it on I Said What I Said sports podcast. But we don't necessarily fall in love with advanced stats, but I think it's a good median and something that we can run our basis off of. In this game, EPA per play, the Eagles had 0.15. So every single time they ran a play, there was 0.15 points added expectedly per play, which is a 75th percentile. That vaunted Miami Dolphins, negative 0.16 every time they ran a play, 17th percentile. So put that in perspective there. EPA per pass, which the Eagles have struggled, 0.17, 63rd percentile. Dolphins, negative 0.16. Every time they rushed, 0.12, 83rd percentile, which is unheard of for an offense in today's day and age that had that much expected points added when you run the football. For the Dolphins, they did a great job of Mostert, negative 0.17, so 31st percentile. So that's down there a bit. Explosive play rate, Eagles, 12.3%, 69th percentile. Dolphins, really, this is explosive, right? 10.4%. So the Eagles defense limiting that, which I thought was a big thing. This was hilarious to me. Late down success rate, so third down, fourth down. Eagles, 58.8% late down success rate, 82nd percentile. The Miami Dolphins, 28.6, the 9th percentile of that number here. That's what they did in that game. That's what the Eagles did to them. Got them off the field when it mattered most. And then to put a bow on this, negative play rate. Eagles, only 6.2% was considered a negative play, which is the 84th percentile. The Miami Dolphins, 14.6% of their plays were considered negative in the 13th percentile. So all that, it's like, okay, what's that mumbo jumbo? Just kind of go through that. When we're talking about Eagles are up here, Dolphins are down here. And that's really the difference of it. And the Eagles did that to a really good Miami Dolphins team on the prime time when everybody was getting up for this game.
A-plus performance by Nick Sirianni. This was the best. This was the biggest regular season win he might have had in his Eagles tenure. I was kind of running through it in my brain today, and I can't really think of one that felt bigger. There might have been ones with a little bit more implications, but I mean, this is the guy that, we love for being aggressive, and he goes for it on 4th and 1. I would have probably preferred a challenge flag instead of the timeout. Like, if that's what you're going to do in that situation, then it makes more sense to me to throw the flag when they run the sneak. But Brad, nobody remembers the fact that the Kadarius Toney punt return and the touchdown was because we didn't go for it on 4th and 1 in a very similar situation in the Super Bowl. And this was Nick Sirianni being like, I'm not doing that again. Like, it doesn't matter. This is, and maybe he will in the Super Bowl if the Eagles make it back, and I'll be eating my words. But that looked like a guy that has learned and grown every week he's been a coach, dude. Like, it is unreal. This guy he's the best manager of personalities I think he just understands Philly. He understands what it is to be a part of the Eagles, and he understands, sometimes we want our coaches talking shit to the refs.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into this. Kelly Greens, man. Could they have looked any better on TV?
No.
Those were beautiful. And I had high expectations and high hopes for how it would look. Yeah, you got the stuff on social media, putting it out. You see some teasers and stuff. But you don't really know until you see it on the field and in live action. I got to say, that beautiful green with the dark visors that the Eagles skill position players are wearing, like I couldn't get enough of it.
With the silvery gray kind of tone of the pants and the lettering and everything. Because I was thinking this is going to be like remember when Vic and them wore like a Kelly Green style jersey? And I've seen the photos and I was like, all right, well, these look a little better. We'll see how it plays out once they're on the field. Dude, these things shitted on every other jersey the Eagles have like ever worn. And I like the midnight green. But Jeffrey, do us a favor, man. Come on. It's easier
you want to go
read,
to it full time?
100%, dude. 100%. It's so much better. I mean, maybe I'm prisoner of the moment. We'll evaluate. I think it's against the Titans later this year that they wear them again. So we'll double check that. But yeah, this is dude. They got Reggie White's kid in the building. You know, they're honoring all these people. They come out in the Kelly Greens. If they played the Dolphins at 11 a.m. on a Sunday any other week, it might have been a closer game. But there was no shot. And the Eagles were losing. I mean, dude, Julio Jones looked good.
Oh, Julio Jones looked good in that. I mean, A.J. Brown, it was absolutely gorgeous. And so we will see it again. This was the first one. They're gonna wear him again in Week 12 against the Buffalo Bills, November 26th. So that was, first of all, I feel bad for the AFC East, man. They're like, oh yeah,
they got one on us.
Yeah, you want to come in here? You want to come in here to Philly? You're gonna be facing Kelly Greens.
I thought that they were maybe playing the Titans with him, Brad, because I got the Titans on my mind right now.
Yes, you should, man. You manifested the big trade that took place. That I think everybody was like, oh, God, of course, the Eagles added another star. And so why don't you take it through the text message that we were having before this? And I texted you. I was like, bro, ... Here
I could pull them up. I got to pull them up. But it was in them early in the morning, right after the game. We're both feeling real good about ourselves. And, you walk into work with your chest puffed a little bit when your team dominates on Sunday night. You feel good. But I was really concerned. Like, first of all, it's Tyreek Hill. Like, things happen. But the dude just ran straight through a bracket. Like, it's insane. Like, that should never happen. And we were talking, we need safety help in Philadelphia. Probably that's the number one concern. Everyone knows that. And I know everyone wanted Justin Simmons. Kevin Byard was my number one here. And I texted you that if I could have my pick of anybody in the league to add to this team, he might be at the top of the list here. 3 hours later, the deal is done. Brad, I don't think Eagles fans are understanding really how big of a deal this is. I think there's a lot of focus on, oh man, how he did it again and how he fleeced him. And it's so funny, haha, we got another all-pro from the Titans for peanuts and, Howie Roseman's the man. Kevin Byard is one of the best players in the NFL. Full stop, point blank. Like, Kevin Byard is one of the best players in the NFL. He's 30. His numbers are down a little bit. We don't know if he's going to be on the team in 2024. All that stuff aside, for the next 15 weeks that Kevin Byard is on the Philadelphia Eagles, this is a massive, massive moment, dude, because it's not only addition by adding one of the best safeties in the NFL, it's a little bit of addition by subtraction, right? Because now we don't have to worry about, like, when you see Terrell Edmonds back there, it's like, oh man, like, if we could be in trouble here if, like, the offense gives a certain look. The only part of it, Brad, that is a little bit concerning, most of their secondary now, 3 of the 4 starters, if you discount the nickel, are over 30 years old. That's unheard of in the NFL.
Yeah, it's definitely rare now. I think with the longevity that these players are playing, like taking care of their body, the better health and safety, the better training staff, things like that. I think we are going to see more defensive players, especially stars, stay in the league a little bit longer. So I think once we see 30 and we kind of get to a few years from now when there's more 34-year-olds getting contracts and things like that, I don't think it'll be as shocking. But I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from. Listen, this is a great trade for the Eagles. One, the dude's never missed a game. The dude's never missed a game in his playing career. He started only 7 games in his rookie year, but he played all 16. He's played every single game. So he's going to be there. He's going to be available. And like you said, I mean, he's a star, man. I mean, he's 2-time first-team All-Pro. Led the league in interceptions in 2017, his second year. Since then, he's had 4 more interceptions every single season since 2020. I mean, except for 2020. So you talk about a guy back there who's a ball hawk. And I think what the good thing is that when you pair him with Reed Blankenship,
Middle Tennessee, baby.
and Reed can stay healthy, what you're really getting there is Reed's going to be able to do the physical things across the middle, and this guy can clean things up. So when I heard of this is what I thought. Maybe I'm a little bit off on this, but I pictured the Legion of Boom, where Cam Chancellor can go down and hit in the box, run a little bit, Reed Blankenship type, and then you have Earl Thomas, aka Kevin Byard, on the backside, who can make and erase interceptions or erase mistakes that the secondary has. Now, I think things are going to change. I'm not quite sure how that fits in what Desai wants to do, but that was like kind of the image that I got. I was like, oh, we got Bradbury, we got Slay on the outside, and this is what we're going to do with the safeties and the nickel. Okay, we'll figure things out from there, but because we got an eraser back there. Like you said, Tyson, the numbers are down this year. No interceptions so far. Tackle numbers
You know
are a
what, though?
bit down.
Last year, he had no interceptions through 5 weeks. What did he finish with? He hit
He
that
finished
number.
with 4.
He hits the number every year. This is a guy that has been continually slept on by like media members because he's a safety. It's not sexy, right? Unless you're Ed Reed, Brian Dawkins, Troy Polamalu, guys like that, you're not really getting the coverage you deserve. And then Tennessee's been good twice, like really good, probably twice in his career. Other than that, it's kind of like, the Titans are playing at 11 with 9 other teams. Or 1, excuse me, if you're on the Eastern time zone there. But he just kind of gets buried. And then to hear the way that every year, like he's a top 30 guy in the NFL top 100 list, and those don't mean anything, but that's what other players think of you. And this is massive. This is a guy from Philly. I don't know. I think he might have grown up a Steelers fan. That's kind of what I'm hearing, but that's all right with us. They give him Brian Dawkins' locker today. He's going to be wearing 31. Like the stars are aligning here for one of the, like, it took the biggest weakness and just kind of, erased it. And it's like, you're looking for a name for the secondary, Brad. The secondary is filthy.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, one thing is for sure, Kevin Byard's family are Philadelphia Eagles fans because when the Eagles were playing the Titans, their family was cussing out the Titans players. And their son was on the team. And they were cussing out other fans. So they're definitely about it.
How crazy is it that this is the guy that leaves Middle Tennessee State as a young, strapping Reed Blankenship walks into the building, and now they're playing with each other? Like, it's just, we talk about Georgia and Alabama and all those things, the Eagles connections there, but to have an all Middle Tennessee safety room or safety group is pretty funny.
That is. And so just before we get into the potential trade deadline moves, the Eagles sent Terrell Edmonds on the way out, their starting safety, and it was along with the 2024 5th and 6th round picks to the Tennessee Titans in exchange for Kevin Byard. So if you ask me, a damn good trade. I think this makes them much better, and they're not necessarily going to find a guy with that caliber of talent in the 4th and 6th rounds. So,
and they still have 8 picks next year.
They could be trading some of those, Tyson, because we got the trade deadline coming up. Do you think the Eagles are done, first of all, before you start kind of getting to our ideas? But do you think this was Howie Roseman's splash move and the Eagles are done, or you think he's going to try to find some other deals that he can put a stamp on this team?
I think he's absolutely trying to find other deals. If those things happen is a different story here. I don't anticipate it to be super splashy. The NFL has gotten a lot more fun at the trade deadline, but it's still like miles behind, because when you hear trade deadline, you think NBA. And the NFL one is kind of more shuffling. It's the Kerry Vincent trades of the world, right? When Philly sends out a 6th and gets him back. I could be convinced on a couple different positions, Brad, that the Eagles could add. I know that, I think offensive line depth could become an issue. Sua Opeta wasn't great on Sunday night. That was his first game that I've seen him play where I was like, man, I don't know. But Cam Jurgens has to miss one more week with the IR. We'll see what he looks like coming back. Potentially a spot there. You could talk me into a linebacker. But if I had my way, if I had my druthers, Brad, I think this team might need a running back. And I know that's not what anybody else is telling you and blah, blah, blah. I don't trust Kenny Gainwell if DeAndre Swift were to miss time, which, Swift looks awesome. Swift has also missed a ton of time in his NFL career, and that hasn't happened yet. But the Eagles, there's some luck. The injury luck is kind of returning to the mean, it seems, for this team after last season. And if you're going to be running 15-play drives, Brad, it just makes some sense to me to have another guy. And it's probably not going to be Derrick Henry. right? And that's who
Right.
everybody is kind of clamoring for. That contract is serious. Like, I don't think that Derrick Henry is going to join the Philadelphia Eagles, but I don't know who it would be, but I would love a Jay Ajayi type trade that the Eagles pulled off in 2017. It seems like a little bit more thunder would be beneficial in that backfield, especially like we don't know what's going on with Jalen, um, whether it's a phantom injury from camp that just is lingering, or if he hurt himself in that Rams game, which is possible, or it was the first Commanders game. But I personally, like, if we're going to run the brotherly shove 3-4 times a game, they ran it 4 times against Miami. I'm good on running 9 quarterback draws, right? Like, you can hit them with an RPO look or a read option here or there throughout the game, but it's getting to the point where it's like, man, can we just get somebody to do that for him?
AJ Dillon, Joshua Kelly, Chargers.
Man, if we got AJD, I don't know how I'd feel.
I think he'd be happy with it, to be honest. I mean, listen, he's like the most efficient runner in the league. Like, he always gets 4 yards. That's it. He doesn't get anything less. He doesn't get anything
What did I
more.
send you? He has the lowest percentage of explosive runs in the NFL since he came to the league, and also the lowest percentage of negative runs since he came in the NFL.
Yeah, that's what it is. And to put it kind of more in perspective, Gainwell and Boston Scott averaging 3.5 yards per carry, Swift averaging 5.1. So if you take Swift out, and listen, it's been great so far, but Tyson, we watched Swift when he was with the Detroit Lions because we're NFL fans. We know this guy can get hurt, and this is a long season, and he's had to take a lot of reps because
tons.
Because Gainwell's been hurt, because Boston Scott's been hurt. Like, he's been really the only running back that was healthy a couple points during the year for a couple games, and he's been running through tackles, things like that, and it's looked great. But ultimately, I'd love to get somebody else in there. And this was why I wanted the Eagles to take a running back. I wanted them to take Chase Brown in the draft this year because I thought a young guy like that, if he can get on the field, be a third down back, at least there's more depth. Why Rashad Penny isn't playing, I have no idea. I mean, he's just been a healthy scratch at this point. I think frustrating for some fans, but when we did see him, it didn't necessarily look like we thought it was going to when he first came over.
Break glass in case of emergency is how I think that the Eagles are viewing Rashad Penny.
And which, honestly, if he's okay with that, it's a cheap contract. If he's all right with sitting on the bench and waiting for his moment, because let's be honest, he's been banged up too. I'm sure he didn't want to rehab again. And, with the Seahawks, he's the one that's going through these drills. He's basically in the Swift role. And we know his body breaks down. So if he's like, screw it, man, I'll wait on the sideline when you need me. Let me know. I think that's okay. Because that guy could be explosive. Like, he could be a game breaker. Maybe that's the case. Maybe the Eagles are waiting for late in the year when they're like, okay, our doctors are telling us, he's going to be an optimal performance late in the season when everybody's tired and he's got healthy legs. He's got fresh legs. Who knows? That may be just me looking into things more. I agree with you. Running back depth concerns me. I again still, if Devontae and AJ Brown, if one of them go down, I'm super nervous about this wide receiving unit. I know they got Julio. I'm scared of it, but I just don't know if there's anybody out there they can go get.
Well, that's kind of the other part of this whole trade deadline thing that I haven't heard mentioned much. There's not like a clear separation between good and bad for a lot of these teams at this point in the year. Like, the Titans were early to the party, just kind of packing it in. Obviously, they're going to start Will Levis this weekend, is the rumor. So they're kind of just like, hey, man, like, this guy wasn't going to be on the team next year. Let's get what we can and keep it moving. If you're in the NFC South, right, it's just the Panthers. They're the only ones out of it, and you can kind of run through these divisions. There's not a ton of teams that are like looking in the mirror right now, and they don't truly have to be honest with themselves because it's been a weird year, and there's bad teams that are going to make the playoffs this year. The only like name jumping to the front of my head is Hunter Renfrow. But again, like, if it's a targets issue, what's he going to do here, right? Like, if those guys stay healthy, I don't know if he's the massive upgrade over Olamide Zaccheaus, or if you want kind of a bigger body wide receiver, potentially sneaky one could be a tight end ad, just because this was the first time I've seen Grant Calcaterra like out snap Jack Stoll. So maybe there's something there, but like a nickel corner, something like that. But in reality, Brad, they're gonna go through this whole thing. They're gonna sign Ndamukong Suh in week 13. We're all gonna get all excited. But I think that Sunday night solidified to Howie Roseman and the Eagles brass that this is a Super Bowl contender. Like, this team is as good as they thought it was, which will open the door for them to make moves if any present themselves. But they're like, we're talking trade this guy, trade that guy. Man, call Leonard Fournette, get him in shape. Like, if that's really what it's going to come to, let's keep the picks and maybe go bargain bin shopping.
Yeah, that could be an option. And then you say tight end. Remember, they traded for Albert O. He's been similar in the penny spot, like just kind of sitting there, learning the system and wait. So if there is break glass in case of emergency on the tight end front, they do have him, who's a talented young guy who's getting used to everything there. So I agree with you. The reason why Howie Roseman went and traded for Kevin Byard was aggressive because he watched what we all watched. This is a really good football team. Went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the AFC, handled them. And we'll learn a lot more about the Eagles in the coming weeks, Tyson, because they're going to have a really tough schedule and a tough stretch. A lot of people didn't think they would start it off with the victory. They got it done against the Miami Dolphins, looking absolutely dominant. And there's a chance that they can add more talent to this team after the trade to get Kevin Byard, an all-pro type of safety coming into Philadelphia. So anything else you want to end on here before we get done?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm nervous for the Commanders game on Sunday. I'll tell you that much. I think everybody else is like flying high right now because the way they look. But God, those guys play is tough every time.
It's uncanny. It really is. But we'll be back next week talking about what happened in the Commanders game, good or bad. If anything crazy happened, we'll make sure to get on this one. So this has been Philthy, a Philadelphia Eagles podcast. We will talk to you all soon. Peace.